Hey friends. So I've been identifying a theme over the last couple of days, and this is kind of it's almost a truism among people who do a lot of kind of inner work, personal development, self-development type work. But that doesn't stop it from kind of emerging periodically as a relevant revelation and kind of offering new insight. And basically, this came up yesterday when I was talking to a student client, and then it came up again today when I was talking to my own coach about my own work and my own projects. And there's this recognition that happens when we work as teachers or coaches that ultimately the people we are best suited to serve are people like ourselves at a slightly earlier phase in our growth, or in a particular journey. In my case, if it's music, someone like me who is following a similar path to me, but just not quite as far along. And it sounds like such a kind of duh idea, but as far as where I am at right now, looking at how do I grow what I do? How do I reach more people and have a greater impact and find the people who really resonate with what I bring, and whose lives are improved by the kind of training, teaching that I can do. And it's, I think one of the reasons it feels like such an epiphany to me is because that question always stymies me. That question, who's your ideal client? I'm like, oh no, not that question again. I know that that's the most important question. It's the one that I'm never quite able to fully answer. But that's where a revelation like this, or recognition like this, I wouldn't call it a revelation, but a recognition like this kind of becomes helpful. And even beyond the utility of that recognition from a kind of marketing standpoint, i.e. I'm looking for people like myself, or I'm looking for people who in some way, again, talking about music, their imprint of music or their experiences with music make them available and make them actually really interested in an approach that changes the dynamic of musical learning, that really puts the emphasis on the mindfulness practice of music and takes it away from the sort of developing musical excellence side of things. That approach is going to resonate with people like myself, and even as I have that recognition, I also immediately get to ask myself, well, what course would I want to take? I've built a course, and as I built my previous course, I kept having the experience, oh my God, I'm building the course that I would most want to be able to take, and that I, at various points in my past particularly, would have loved to be able to sign up for. This is also how it came up in my conversation yesterday, was with somebody who's considering how to kind of build her program, and one of our shared recognitions was, you're living it right now. There are these points in our process where maybe we need to go on a meditation retreat. Well, do we need to go sign up for a meditation retreat? Or can we design our own meditation retreat and then stick to it, and then actually, go on our own retreat? I mean, if we're going to sell somebody a retreat, don't we want to go on the retreat first and kind of know? If we hadn't designed it, we'd certainly want to road test it before we recommend it to friends. So we can treat our own work in the same way. Our own work can become a laboratory, or however you want to think of it. It's our way of taking the course before we sell the course, or before we teach the course. And I think why this is all kind of coming through is I am kind of at a crossroads moment as far as what am I really leaning into? And I think I've kind of gotten there as far as at least my short-term steps. I kind of know that I'm going to be rolling out a piano course. But it brings up a bunch of questions that I partially answered the first time, but that I'm that in the intervening time, since I've kind of devoted attention to other projects and have a bit of space to reflect, I am now coming back to, well, how did I answer that question? What was really the kind of underlying impulse to serve? What problems am I really equipped to solve? And that brings what came up for me as I was talking to my coach earlier, is that brings up the need for my own vulnerability, my own sense that I've experienced this problem before, and admitting that the problem I'm solving for my clients or students is a problem that I have also wrestled with. Maybe in some ways I'm still working with it. Again, we want to be one step ahead of our students, but a lot of times one step ahead is good enough. A lot of times one step ahead means, it might not be only one step in all ways, but if we're going to guide someone through a particular question or a particular problem, we just want to be a couple steps down the road and have integrated those experiences that are going to inform what we can provide. And I think one of the things that's happening is it points me back into a reflective mode of needing to recognize that on some level these problems have had these problems have been part of my life. These questions, these are the ways in which I have been vulnerable in the past. You know, what's my vulnerability here? You know, I know I've mentioned Carl Jung's concept of the wounded healer, basically telling us a healer is someone who has a wound that they've learned how to tend, and that it's almost impossible to find a healer without at least a history of being wounded, because it's that humanity, it's that vulnerability, that's what activates our service. So I think I'm letting that in as I look at, like, okay, rebooting a program and marketing and all the things that come with growing a business. It's also a question of, how am I vulnerable here? Because how am I vulnerable here will tell me a lot about what I'm really doing and whom I'm really serving. Ultimately, that's what I'm trying to. We're all trying to really get clear on, is what we all have a gift to give. Who's looking for that gift? Well, what is our own experience with receiving that grace, or with receiving that training, or that affirmation, or whatever it is? And what was the vulnerability that provoked our need? It's interesting. I've never thought of marketing as being first and foremost about vulnerability, but it actually kind of is. So, anyway, you're getting the inside scoop of some of my next steps. I appreciate you taking the time to listen, to tune in. Thanks so much. Appreciate you. Much love. I'll see you tomorrow.